Hi, I'm Ryan with Energy Trust of Oregon. In today's video, we'll walk you through the entire installation process step by step. From prepping your space and mounting the unit to connecting the plumbing and electrical components. We'll cover everything you need to know to get your heat pump water heater up and running.
The first thing we're going to want to do is take a water pressure check. So we're going to take our water pressure gauge with our T-handle valves. Ideally, you might want to have a bucket if you are using this, because you're going to want to release some water from the other side so that we could check the behavior of the gauge. So with these off, we're going to go ahead and open up the valve here all the way on. So now with this attached, I'm going to go ahead and open the side that's going towards our gauge first. So we're going to open that up. We're looking for that gauge to be swaying. If it's swaying back and forth, it's telling us that we have an open plumbing system. And that's going to tell us that we do not need an expansion tank. If that gauge were to hit that pressure and not sway back and forth, that's going to tell us that we have a check valve somewhere in the main line coming into the home, and that's going to require an expansion tank on the water heater, and that is a code requirement. And I'm going to hold my bucket up to the other side here that does not have the gauge, just so we can release that pressure into the bucket. Otherwise, you're going to take this off and you're going to have that water splash up in your face. So now that pressure is gone, you can open both of them up, and now we can take this off. Just dump any excess water you have in the bucket. And so now we've done our pressure check. You're going to want to look for your breaker panel. In this case, it is here in the garage right next to our installation space. So we're going to open this up. A lot of your breaker panels are labeled on the side. More than likely, your old electric water heater is going to be on a 30 amp breaker as well. That's what we're looking for. Sometimes it can be less, but this particular heat pump water heater needs to be on a 30 amp. Pretty positive just from what I'm reading here that it's going to be this top one on the right hand side. So we're going to go ahead and flip this 30 amp breaker off, and that's going to be the opposite direction of where the other ones are going. So we're going to take our voltage tester now. We're going to go to the water heater after we take one of these panels off, and then we're going to touch the wire or get close to it, and if it's on, it's going to beep and it's going to go red, and that's going to tell us that I did not turn the correct one off. We have Phillips screws, so I'm going to go ahead and just take this right side of the panel off first. So I'm going to remove this screw. And this is all going to go into the garbage, but we can just set it off to the side for now. So now we're going to take our voltage tester, and then we're going to want to just apply that to the wires. You should be able to just get close, and if it was still on, it's going to let you know it's going to go red and it's going to beep. There are other styles of this tool that might behave differently. They might just beep, or the light that might go red to let you know that it's still on. But we want it to be green. So as long as it's green, and we're touching these wires, especially the two hot wires coming in, that's kind of what we're looking for, and we're green. So that means that we've turned the correct breaker off, and then we can go ahead and take those wire nuts off. So now we're going to take these other screws on this panel off. We don't need this to stay on anymore. We got two more fill-up screws, so I'm going to unthread those. So I'm going to remove the ground wire. Should just be able to loosen the ground screw. And then you can even use your screwdriver just to kind of pull that ground wire out and get it off of there. So now that these two screws are out, we can actually lift all of this out of here, and that's going to expose the wires. So I'm going to unthread these counterclockwise. I'm going to set them off to the side. So now my wire and my conduit is now free from the water heater. We do have this panel that's here that does need to come off, and it's just held by a nut on the bottom. So we're going to undo that. Sometimes you need a wrench for this. So we're going to unthread this here. And then this panel, along with these wire nuts, are garbage. So again, if you have a garbage bucket, just toss those in. And then this nut here, if it's still in good shape, we can put that back on here so we don't lose it. I'm going to take new wire nuts, or the same ones that we just had, and we're actually going to throw them back on the wires. That's just for safety, to make sure that if the breaker were to get turned back on for any reason, these wires are not exposed and can create a hazard for you. So now we have our new wire nuts. We can end up reusing these later. These are brand new. We're just going to cap these with those wire nuts, twist them on clockwise a few times. And again, that's just to protect us from the wire in case this were to get turned on or a surge of power came through for some reason. And then this can just get kind of set off to the side for now, anywhere out of the way, like that. And now we've disconnected the water heater and verified that the power is off. So now that we're on the step of draining your water heater out, what we're going to need is a typical garden hose will work just fine for this. The other thing that we would use as technicians out in the field, this is called a transfer pump. It is kind of an expensive item, and all this is going to do is just help us pull the water out of the tank a little bit faster. Okay, so one end of this hose here from the pump is going to attach, and this would be just your garden hose if that's all you had, which more than likely is just going to be your garden hose, and you're going to thread that onto the drain valve here. So I made sure that's decently snug on there. This type of valve, the way that it opens, it actually turns the threads with it, so we're going to have it just a little bit loose on there, open it up, and then kind of tighten it down once this is open. So now that we have our transfer pump kind of hooked up, now we're going to want to drain this water out using our hose. Now it's important to find a place to drain that water to. It may be rusty coming out. It also is going to be hot, especially if your tank was still working. So you may not want to put that water like in your garden or on your yard. You might want to put it in the street, or if you have a storm drain of some kind, you're going to want it to put it there. So I'm going to hook this up to the other side of my transfer pump. If this was the homeowner doing it themselves, this side of the hose would just go right to the water heater. So now we're going to take the hose and we just need to run this outside. So in this garage, which is not very typical, we actually have a 4-inch ABS drain. So we're going to take our hose, and we've chosen to use the clean out. So we're going to go ahead and just pop that in here, about a foot or so, or honestly as far as it'll let you go in, the more secure that hose is going to be. So just going to kind of move that out of the way if possible. And that's in the drain now. So now we're going to move over to the valve on the water heater, and we're going to want to open this up now to start the draining process. If you do have a transfer pump, you are not supposed to run those pumps dry, so you actually do want that water flow to begin in the pump. This doesn't apply if you're just using a garden hose to drain your water heater. So I have this other hose here, which would be your garden hose if you were doing it yourself. It's kind of loose, but almost starting to get snug on here, because when I open this up, all these threads are going to turn. So I want to kind of grab the other end of the hose here, and I'm going to start to open it up counterclockwise. That's going to allow water to start to flow. So we're going to do that now. Should be able to hear the water come through. That's going to indicate that we have flowing water. But I'm just going to make sure my hose is kind of snug on there now that we're open. So we can actually go over here to the utility sink, and we're going to open up the hot side of this fixture, and we're going to introduce air into the system. That should help this water start to flow for us. And we shouldn't see any water. We might get a trickle out of here. That's all the way open, and we don't have any flowing water, which is normal. But this is, now that this is open, it's allowing air to come through the plumbing system and kind of enter the water heater from the top. I'm also going to open the temperature and pressure relief valve here as well. Open this up. That's broken the airlock in the plumbing now. You might see water come out of a fixture. That's actually allowing the water flow from the bottom of the tank to really start to flow quickly. So I'm going to pull that out. So we do have water flowing. It's got to catch up with it now that I've pulled it out. This is about how fast that water is going to drain if you're doing it without the pump. If you do have a transfer pump, we are going to want to go ahead and turn that on so that we can help evacuate that water out of the tank. So we're going to go ahead and turn that on now. And if you look at the hose, you get much better flowing water with the transfer pump. It just helps us speed up the process as installers. Again, not something that you have to have. So we've removed our hoses and put those things away. The last things that we really need to do here before we remove this water heater is disconnect our 2 water flexes attached to the tank. So we're going to use the channel locks here, and we're going to turn this counterclockwise to take these off. So I'm going to start here on the cold. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. All right. So as I said, little residual water coming through there. So place the bucket there, and then keep this dripping in that direction. So before we remove this completely, I'm actually going to cut this pipe. We are going to kind of redo a section of this anyways. That way it causes less stress on it when we reconnect all the plumbing. So we're using a copper circle type cutter. You can use this on copper. You can also use it on plastic pipe like the CPVC here. Okay, so now we're going to put this on here. You're just going to push it on. Kind of makes a clicking sound. And now we're just going to rotate it slowly in the direction of the arrow. And eventually it will cut all the way through. Just like that. Again, we're going to connect the second water flex, which is the hot side here. So you might have residual water on both sides. We do have a drip still going. It hasn't really gone away. And that's because, once again, that water is still able to pass through the gate valve. So we can try to give it another turn, see if it'll actually stop this, and if not, and if you're not able to control this water, you might want to just go turn the water off at the street and just stop that completely. So we'll try to turn it now. So I'm not able to get much more than that. So for now, we'll leave it there and just push it out of our way a little bit more so that we can remove the water heater. So everything's disconnected. We should be able to just kind of wobble this tank off of here. Right onto the ground. Now you just want to find kind of a smooth surface to grab with your hand truck. You're going to push it back, put the hand truck underneath. Now we can use anything up here to just as a handle to pull it back, but put the weight on the wheels, and then we're going to haul it out. There's a lot of things that we might want to look at doing before we position the water heater because this is now taller, it's wider, it's going to get in our way. So we want to see, do we want to tackle the plumbing, get that prepared? Do we want to start the condensation? Do we want to get our earthquake straps done first? These are all questions you're going to want to ask yourself before you move the water heater into place. We want to figure out exactly where our water heater is going to be positioned. In our corner here where the old water heater was, our main water valve is actually coming into the garage. It comes out with the valve there for the homeowner to be able to use that. And then it goes back in the house where it feeds the rest of the house with cold water and in turn the water heater also. So we don't want to be in front of that, and we don't want to be pushed up against it either. We don't want to damage that. So this is a little bit wider. More than likely, we're going to need to sort of install this water heater, scoot it off to the left in comparison to where the old one was. The other thing I'm looking at here is the plumbing coming out of the wall. I know my cold starts here, so more than likely there's a straight line straight up to where the cold's actually coming out of the wall for our water heater. So I want to make sure when I'm looking for my studs and where my earthquake straps are going to go into, I want to make sure they're going into a stud and not into a pipe. Wiring, that sort of thing. So you're going to take your stud finder, you're going to put it up against the wall. We're going to turn it on. You're going to make sure you apply pressure against the wall because you want it to stay flush with it here. And you're just going to slowly, while you're holding that button, you're just going to move in a direction. This starts to beep. It's letting us know we have a stud right here, which is where we knew there was already a stud. So we're going to also want to find the next two. So I'm going to go the opposite direction. We should have one here soon. Right here. So now we have another stud here. So I know we got, looks to be about 16 inches apart. We're going to go the other way and we're going to locate the third. The other thing we're going to want to look at with this water heater being as tall as it is, we have some things against the wall here that we're not going to want to be pushing up against with these earthquake straps. So we're actually going to make some bracing. We just use some 2x4s will work just fine. There's going to be 2 straps, one on the top third of the tank and one on the bottom third of the tank as well. That's a code requirement that those are where those straps go. And we're going to want to place a 2x4 up against this middle stud around where that first earthquake strap is, and then another one down in that lower third section around where that bottom earthquake strap is going to go. That 2x4 is going to give us enough distance to get away from these things on the wall. We just don't want to crush this stuff here. Because we're attaching to the existing plumbing, we have 2 male threaded fittings here, and we're going to attach 2 female threaded fittings onto there. Apply our thread tape first. So typically on this, we like to go about 3 to 5 times around. And you want to go clockwise in the way that you would turn that thread to tighten it down. So we got 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to go ahead and do both since we already have it in our hands. Okay, now we're going to take our pipe dope, pipe thread sealant, any one of those. We're going to take a little bit on the dauber in here, and we're just going to apply kind of a layer around those threads. All right, so we have our 2 brass fittings. Just go and hand tight at first. So now for these, I'm going to grab some channel locks. Okay. So we need to go clockwise. Okay, so we have our PEX female adapters on our existing male connections on the plumbing. There are different types of PEX. This is PEX B in particular. So this is going to use crimp style fittings, and you're going to basically sleeve your crimp rings over, and then whatever type of fitting you're using, you know, what we have there is a female adapter as an example, and we're going to push that on, sleeve that up to where we know we're pinching on the barbs, and then we're going to use this PEX crimping tool here. You could buy it again, most of your hardware stores are going to have this. We're going to run this PEX over and then connect to here with 2 stainless steel water flexes. So we're ready to put our pad down. Our earthquake straps are in the wall. So we're just going to put this in place here. We have some bracing on the wall that's going to bring our water heater away from the wall just a little bit. So we're going to place this just a few inches away from the wall. So you just want to take your body weight and kind of lean it back. And then you're just going to guide that tank and roll it right over where our pad is. Now we kind of have it angled where we want it. We just want to make sure we're pushed up against our bracing on the wall there. So just take a look around the tank, make sure you're where you want to be. So now we're just going to take the water heater and just nudge it all the way up against our bracing. And that way, when we install our earthquake straps, it's going to be pulling it tightly against the wall. So we have our earthquake straps fully installed on our water heater. Some important things to note if you're going to be installing these. You want to make sure that you're looking at your local code requirements around earthquake strapping. On the placement on the straps, that's another thing that's important to note. You do want to put these earthquake straps around the top third section of the water heater and somewhere in the bottom third. So you could take the water heater and literally chop it into 3 parts in even thirds. One of your straps needs to be in that lower quadrant, that lower third, and then the top one's going to be in that top third section. You do not want to be covering anything important on the tank. We have a condensation port up here. You never want to run your strap across, your control board on the top. You can't cover the element covers with those. You got to have it on the shell of the tank and not covering any of those essential things. So we have the temperature and pressure relief valve is here, located on the side of this tank. Sometimes it'll be on the top. It just depends on which water heater you're installing. So these do need to be ran to an approved location depending on where the water heater is located in the home. So we're going to hook this up. In this particular case, we just add some pipe dope. We don't do the thread tape and dope in this scenario. Pipe dope should be enough for that. So we're going to apply some here. So you just want to make sure you're taking your time. And then I'm just going to take a crescent wrench and just make sure that we have about 3 to 5 threads showing on the male adapter. All right, so one of the last things that we got to do with this heat pump water heater is run a condensation line and direct that water to an approved location. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take another CPVC male adapter. I already have a T glued on here. The T is going to allow airflow and also kind of a clean out for this condensation line, so the top's actually going to stay open. So we're going to just carefully start to thread it. It's plastic to plastic. You can cross thread these very easily. So we're going to go till it starts to get snug. Again, no tools, just hand tighten. I'm going to go to about right there. That pipe dope or pipe thread sealant's going to help seal those threads and keep any of that condensation water actually leaking out. And now we can run our condensation line along the wall and bring it to the utility sink. All right, so now that we have the plumbing and the condensate done, we have one last step here, and that's to wire up the unit and then fill the tank. So we're going to go ahead and use the drill. We have 2 screws on top that we're going to remove first. We just have to get this box kind of out of the way along with these 2 screws from this side here. And we're just going to set this stuff off to the side somewhere in a safe place where you're not going to lose these. So this top plastic lid comes off. There's 2 more screws here and here. We're going to take those off now so that we can move this box out of the way. Okay, we're going to take these 2 screws off to remove the second cover plate. So what we're looking for in the box are 2 hot wires. We should have a red and a black. They have quite a bit of slack in there, so you can really just kind of pull these out and give yourself what you need. So we have our existing electrical conduit here. This is going to be what our 30 amp line is ran off of, is this line here. We just have these on here for protection, just to make sure that if the breaker were to be flipped on, nothing happens to any of us here. So this one's just put together with a couple flathead screws on either side, so we're just going to unscrew those. Okay, we can remove those wire nuts just to give us enough room to pull this fitting off. So we're just going to take these off and put these off to the side. And then we're going to slide that fitting off and out of this ground wire here. All right. It's good to look at the condition of the wiring that's there. One, you want to check the material of the wire. So if you look at the manufacturer's instructions, they always want you to be connecting this with copper connectors. So these wires should be 10 gauge copper. Now we're going to strip these back. You want about a fingernail's worth off of here or so, about a ½ inch to an inch. And then just pull that coating off of there and give you nice, clean, fresh wire to use. So we want to get our new 90 fitting onto our conduit again. So this time we're dealing with Phillips screws. And then this fitting just comes apart into 2 pieces. So we're going to slide the bottom in first. We're going to put all our wires through. Okay, we're going to sleeve this all the way up to where the conduit is. And then we're going to kind of bend all this down. So now that's going to allow the top piece to go on. There's a slot for the front to fit in. We're just going to push that in. And then we just want to start to thread those screws back in. Sometimes I like to do it by hand just to make sure those don't get cross-threaded. Okay, so now that we're at this point, we're going to want this nut to hold this on. So we're going to just drop that off. Slide the cover plate up and over. And then this nut's going to go right over the top of that. And you could thread that on there. All right, and that should keep that in place. Now we're going to connect our ground wire to our ground screw up top. Just going to bend that up and wrap that around the ground screw. Now we're going to screw that ground screw down to hold the wire in place. Just snug enough that it really holds down on that ground wire. So I'm going to take the wires that are here. I'm just going to get them kind of prepared in an area I can work with them. These are a little short. We can make it work for this purpose. So I'm going to get one screw kind of hand started, and then I'm going to start on the other. All right. So these are our wire nuts. These are winged, so they make it a little easier to get a grip on them, to twist them on your wires. So we're going to set one off to the side. So we don't have much wire to work with here, so our space is a little bit limited. It is required by code that we connect the correct colors of wires together. We want to put our black to black wire, and then our red that comes on the water heater is going to connect to the white. You'd want to put the red and red together. So black and black, or red and red, or red and white are gonna go together. So I'm going to stuff in the excess here, just because I don't need all of that extra. And I want to bring these two together and make sure that they're even. So I'm going to take the wire nut now, and I'm going to sleeve it over the top. And I'm going to start to twist them together and really just make sure one's not getting pushed out. So if you can get a grip on both wires as you're twisting, it's really going to make sure that one of those wires doesn't pop out and create an electrical fire or a surge of some kind. And we're going to twist these together. You really want to get them real snug. So if you can start to see those two wires bind with each other, we're getting up close to that point where we're tight enough. I like to give it a couple turns after that point just to make sure. And then after that, we can kind of push that back inside this box here. So now we just have our two blacks to hook up here, and then we should be good with with our wire nuts. And once we're snug enough, we just need to fit everything back in this box again. So we're going to push these down. And all of these smaller wires that are going to this connection up here, which we do not need to worry about now, those just need to stuff back in the box as well. And then we're going to start to put these screws back in. So there's a screw in the back here, and there's going to be a screw in this front right corner. And so we're just going to line up that back one first. The screw is still in the hole, so I'm going to do that. It's going to help me stay in line. And you don't need to go too tight on these. We just want them snug. Make sure that box is secured on top. And then lastly, we have the lid. Just this here. This lid's just going to go right on top. We got two more screws, one on each side, and we're going to secure that back on place. We finished putting our wiring together. Everything on this tank is now ran to where it needs to go. Our plumbing's connected. We're ready to now turn water on. We're just going to take our bucket here and just kind of slide it underneath this pipe. This has a little flex to it. You just want to be careful not to go too far. So I'm really going to move the bucket underneath it more than the pipe to the bucket. So now that we're here, we're going to open this up, and it's just going to be straight out towards me, and that's going to be open. Even initially when you open this up, you'll hear some air pass through the pipe because there's already some air that's been inside the tank. And so at this point in time, we've turned the main water supply back on. We did turn it off because we had a drip coming from our cold side, just because of that valve just not creating that perfect seal to shut our water off. So that's on now, and we can go ahead and turn our main water valve to the water heater back on and start filling the tank. And you'll hear water start to flow through. We do want it to fill fully so that we could check for leaks on both sides after we purge air in the homeowner's house, or if you're doing your own installation, after you purge air from your plumbing system. Then we can see full pressure here at our plumbing, which may show any small leaks you might have or large leaks. We're going to want to be looking for those at all of our fittings that we put together. So we've just filled the tank with water, and we've purged air and a little bit of water from our temperature and pressure relief pipe into our bucket. That doesn't mean that all of the air is now out of your plumbing. So we do not want to turn on the power at the breaker panel to our water heater just yet. You're going to want to go to each of your fixtures in your home. So that'd be your faucets, your shower, your bathtub. And you're going to want to slowly open the hot side of that faucet. Or if you turned off all of your water, you're going to want to open up both. And we want to just let that water run until all of the air has stopped sputtering through the line. And then you could turn it off, go to your next fixture, and just so on and so forth until the home is purged of air. We just don't want any air gaps in the tank. We don't want to potentially dry fire our water heater, ruin the elements in the tank. Or, you know, the other reason we're doing this is so that we can fully pressurize our plumbing. And at that point in time, we can check for leaks on both our cold and our hot. And that pressure is going to show us if we do have a leak that we need to address or not. A lot of times, your main places you're going to want to check are all of your threaded fittings to your tank. If you didn't go tight enough, you might see a little bit of a leak there. After all of that's done, we can add a pipe insulation onto our water heater. In this case, we're going to use some black duct tape to kind of seal our corners together on this here. So we're going to go to the breaker panel now. We're going to open this up. The only one that we flipped off, which was the one for the water heater, it's our double 30 amp breaker. I'm going to go ahead and flip that on and close the panel. And then we should just give the water heater just a second here, and we should be able to see, we're going to hear a few noises, some clicks on the water heater. The display comes on and it says disabled. That's normal. That's what we're looking for on this particular model. And then when we're ready to actually turn things on and engage the unit, we're going to go ahead and hit on off. Thank you so much for watching. We hope that you learned something on how to install a heat pump water heater today. Just make sure you take time on the installation. Make sure you look a few steps ahead and make sure you're not missing anything. And then also importantly is to make sure you check your local plumbing and building codes to make sure that this is getting installed properly. Check your manufacturer's installation instructions. Each one of these heat pump water heaters is going to install a little bit differently. They're configured differently. It's going to change the way that you do your installation. And lastly, make sure you check your local jurisdiction for permitting requirements in your area. Thank you very much.